The forbidden smell * smoke drifted through the corridors of Deck 4, making the emergency lights flicker red. The ship's alarm system detected unauthorized combustion, but the source wasn't a reactor leak or a fire. It was the kitchen-specific. The human's corner of it, Jace stood over a metal crate flipped upside down, using a portable plasma cutter as a burner. A battered pot sat on top, boiling with a thick, greenish liquid that bubbled like swamp mud. He stirred it calmly with a broken antenna, humming a tune no one on the ship recognized. Crew members from the alien species Travith passed by, recoiled, and ran. One yelled, "That's not food," while clutching his nose and stumbling into a wall. Another screamed, "He's cooking Dathrit weed. That's toxic." But Jace didn't stop. He dropped more of the weed into the pot, crushing it with his fingers, then sprinkled crushed protein rations into the mix. The smell grew spicy and earthy all at once, like a rotten salad soaked in motor oil. To Jace, it smelled like home, like something his grandma used to cook during power outages back on Earth. It was a dish of desperation but also comfort. He had no idea this plant was considered a biohazard by most galactic species. The ship's second officer, a violet-skinned female named Shora, entered the kitchen with her translator blinking red. She looked horrified as she saw the bubbling pot. "Human, step away from that toxin," she ordered, covering her face with her sleeve. Jace looked up, confused. "It's just soup," he replied, shrugging. Shura shouted, "That is Day 3 weed, banned on 74 systems." Still, Jace didn't panic. He stirred again, blew on the steam, and tasted it. "Need salt," he muttered, then sprinkled crushed nutrient tabs into it. One of the engineers collapsed. Nearby, overwhelmed by the fumes, medical drones rushed in, pulled him out, and began scanning for neurological damage. None was found. The scanner simply said, "Overstimulation of olfactory system." The smell reached the bridge. Captain Hazik, a hardened crustacean-like alien, pounded a claw on the table. "Is the human weaponizing cuisine?" he growled. Another crew member tried to activate the fire suppression system, but the plasma cutter was shielded. Nothing could stop the stew now, despite the panic. Jace ladled a portion into a clean metal cup and placed it on the counter. He turned to the frozen aliens behind him and smiled. "Well, if anyone wants a taste, it's ready." No one moved. The pot bubbled once more, letting out another wave of thick steam. Shura stepped forward slowly, her face pale, her body trembling. She whispered, "He's going to kill us all." But Jace just sat down, slurped the soup, and sighed in satisfaction. As alarms screamed and the crew scattered, Jace leaned back and said, "Finally, something edible on this rust bucket. Side effects may include worship." The next morning, silence fell over the ship, not because things were calm, but because no one dared breathe near the kitchen. The stench still clung to the air like smoke after a battlefield. An entire deck had been shut down for bioolfactory hazard containment. Yet the smell persisted, but something strange had started happening. The ship's medic, Yurlon, who fainted during the incident, was now awake. He was smiling, eyes wide and glowing. "I saw stars within stars," he whispered. "I saw truth. The stew showed me." Captain Hazik ordered a full investigation. Shora, still pale, wore a rebreather as she entered the kitchen's sealed observation deck. There sat Jace, cross-legged, sipping the same green stew like it was tea. His only complaint, "Too thin. I need more flavor next time." That sentence was entered into the ship's report logs as the first commandment of the stewmaster. Unknown to Jace, the aliens had begun to treat his actions as prophecy. The Travith were a spiritual race. They believed that strong smells opened a gateway to higher thought. Until now, no smell had been strong enough to break their mental barriers until Jace's stew. Word spread fast. By noon, crew members came in pairs, kneeling near the kitchen window. They didn't speak, only observed. Some even brought glowing stones and placed them in front of the door as offerings. Jace thought it was weird, but chalked it up to cultural stuff. Then Shora returned, holding a bowl in trembling hands. "I need to understand," she said. Jace blinked. "You want to try it?" She nodded, her hands shaking as she lifted the spoon to her mouth. The taste hit instantly bitter, then sweet, then something she couldn't describe. Her vision changed. She saw her childhood, her mother's voice, the stars rotating backward, and then absolute clarity. When she opened her eyes, her body felt weightless. She dropped to her knees and whispered, "This is divine." Jace stared. "Lady, it's soup." But to the crew, that phrase became the second commandment. Soon, Every ration shift included a ceremonial visit to Jace's kitchen. They brought him old herbs, spoiled vegetables, and strange roots, hoping he would use them in his next creation. He called it trash. They called it sacred offering. He scribbled some notes for himself like add crunch, or avoid that yellow root next time. But aliens copied the notes, preserved them, and printed them into glowing scrolls. They called it the scripture of flavor. The medical officer updated her records. Mental effects include temporary hallucinations, clarity, inner peace, and increased obedience. In less than 2 days, Jace had unknowingly become a priest, a prophet, and a chemical enigma, all for cooking something his grandma once made during food shortages on Earth. And he still didn't know what the fuss was about. To him, it was just lunch. The dish that stopped a war. The warship Threx, unyielding, appeared on long-range scanners without warning. It was a Predator-class vessel, known for destroying ships that even looked suspicious. The captain of the alien freighter, still recovering from stew hallucinations, tried to hail them. But before words could be exchanged, the enemy sent one clear message: surrender or be vaporized. Chaos erupted across the bridge. Weapons were offline, shields were low, and no one was in the right mind to fight. Some of the crew still had shimmering lights dancing in their vision from the last stew batch. Captain Hazak grabbed his cum and barked. Human, prepare to evacuate. But in the kitchen, Jace was unfazed. He was humming while peeling a reddish root he'd found in the hydroponic waste bin. He didn't even look up. What's with the yelling now? He asked, stirring the pot. A new batch of stew simmered in the old pot. It sent thicker, deeper, more powerful. The ventilation system carried the aroma through the ducts and into the airlock corridor, then further to the external docking seal, unintentionally. The scent leaked into space through a damaged outflow panel. The Threx, unyielding, caught the odor. Its crew, all hardened warriors of the Lothak species, known for having no nose cartilage but extreme olfactory nerves, froze. Their commander staggered, grabbing the edge of his console. What is that smell? He growled, eyes wide. Another soldier dropped to his knees. It reminds me of my first hatching pit. The human freighter sent a final desperate hail. Before they could say anything, the enemy replied, we are boarding. Panic turned into confusion. Jace barely blinked as the enemy stepped into the kitchen. Weapons still sheathed, faces filled with hunger, not hate. The Lotha commander pointed at the pot and said, you made this. Jace nodded slowly. Yeah, want a bowl? The commander walked forward, took a spoon, and tasted the thick stew. He gasped, dropped the spoon, and whispered, this is what we've been searching for. Without another word, he fell to his knees in front of Jace, his warriors following. The human was horrified. Did I poison you? The Lothak commander said. No, you healed me. From that moment, both crews agreed to a ceasefire. A peace agreement was scribbled on a stained napkin while they shared stew around a broken mess hall table. The Galactic War didn't end with a treaty or a surrender, ended with a second helping. And somewhere in a quiet cargo bay, Jace planted more Day 3 weed into repurposed coffee cans. As he watered them, he muttered, guess I'll need more spoons next time.